Sairam America! You're watching the Soul Network, and I am your host, Vishnu Rangachari. Welcome to episode 4 of the InSaider Lens. Through this special 10-episode series, we will take you on a beautiful spiritual journey across the nation. Along the way, we will collect valuable gems of different cities, their culture, spirits, and unveil the cord that connects them with Swami's teachings. Previously, we highlighted Georgia's resurgent city, Atlanta. Today, we welcome you to Seattle, Washington, also known as the Evergreen State. There's a lot to cover in today's episode, and here are the top stories. Devotees all over the world will be participating in 36 hours of continuous budget singing this weekend. November is Native American Heritage Month, and we will take a closer look at its significance and highlight the contributions of the Native American community. For our main segment today, we have lined up a fireside chat on the theme All Our Relations, where we will explore the Pacific Northwest Native Americans and their heritage. On-site reporters Deepthi and Manasvi will elaborate on Seattle's history, landmarks, and its spiritual highlights. Global Akhanda Bhajans, the most awaited event for Sai devotees, will be celebrated this weekend. This Sai Bhajan Sadhana, in the form of a 24-hour marathon, was initiated by Bhagavan himself to alleviate the suffering in the world and restore peace. This timeless spiritual exercise, known as Intonation for Universal Peace, started back in the mid-40s. To be precise, in 1944, in the home of the late Dr. R.S. Padmanabhan of Bengaluru, India, 8 families met in the presence of Bhagavan to conduct bhajans. From that humble beginning, attended by 150 devotees, to the modern-day global-scale Akhanda Bhajans, attended by several thousands, this offering is truly a hallmark event that brings together devotees across cities, countries, and continents. Online worldwide Akhanda Bhajans will begin in just a few hours at 9 p.m. Pacific Time and ends at 9 a.m. on Sunday, November 14th. last week's Connect Challenge. Let's take a look at what is something that is close to your heart and brings a smile to your face. Here are your responses. November concludes the traditional harvest season of Native Americans and is generally a time of celebration and giving thanks. Thus, November is now observed as the Native American Heritage Month to celebrate the rich and diverse cultures, traditions, and histories, and to acknowledge the important contributions made by the natives of the land. It also serves as an opportunity to educate ourselves and raise awareness about the unique challenges Native people have faced both in the past and present, and the ways they conquered the challenges. In today's main segment, we will do just that. We have a wonderful panel of speakers from the Pacific Northwest who will share their learnings and reflections from working with the Native American community. Our first panelist, Sister Krishnaveni Anur, was part of the committee that prepared a children's play about the spiritual beliefs of the Native American people. This play was performed in front of Swami during the U.S. pilgrimage to Puttaparthi in 2010, and we'll hear more about it in this segment. Our next panelist, Sister Tina Schweikert, is the author of Tread Softly, a book based on Swami's teachings on the environment, and she is very well connected with the Native American communities. And the third panelist is Brother Ananta Guripati, who has fused his love for service, teaching, and mentoring SSC kids. He will share his experience on leading a Grama Seva project for the Native American community in Yakama Indian Reservation. So relax and enjoy this fireside chat called All Our Relations.
Saram Krishnaveni and Ananta. So happy you're here joining us today. I'm really looking forward to talking about Native American spirituality and the relationship to Swami's teachings and the environment. I thought maybe we'd start with each of us talking about when we came to the Pacific Northwest or Seattle and what our impressions are of this place. Krishnaveni, would you start?
Yes, that was such a long time ago. We first came to Seattle in December of 1983. I think it was Christmas Day. Ashok had taken a new job here. And even as our plane was descending, we saw all these beautiful things, snowy mountains, there were lakes, and entire hillsides covered in green, evergreen trees. It was something to see, abundant beauty everywhere. So when we went back to our hotel room, from the window, we saw this magnificent mountain, like towered over everything. So we got in our rental car and went to see it right away. And the park was closed, for winter. But we truly enjoyed looking around the city, looking at the natural beauty. And back in those days, there was no GPS. So we looked at maps to go places and noticed that the names were quite unrecognizable. We couldn't pronounce them. We didn't know what language that was. But we found out that Seattle area, as well as Washington, were home to dozens of Native American tribes. And names of towns, rivers, streams, even that big mountain we went to see was known as Tahoma. So we also found out, we lived here for a while, and we found out that all these things, the land, the water, the trees, and the animals were actually sacred to the Native American people.
Thank you. Thank you. Ananta?
Thank you. Yeah, I've been in this area for about 20, 25 years also. And just as Krishnaveni mentioned, I just got, I was amazed with the natural beauty. There's just so much greenery and so much nature everywhere you look. And certainly going off into the mountains and the wilderness, definitely feel sort of a lot of sacredness, a lot of spirituality in this area. And as I learned more over time, I realized that a lot of it is brought here by the Native Americans. I've had a chance to meet a number of tribes over the years and talk to them. And each of those meetings they're very spiritual, and it's amazing how beautifully they revered nature and they revered all the animals. So even now, after many years, wherever I go when I come back here, it's always such a beautiful place, so much greenery and natural beauty. And even the water tastes amazingly good. Every time I travel, I come back and I think, God, nice to be back home to this delicious water.
Yes, I agree. Thank you so much. Yeah, and for myself, you know, I grew up in Southern California, but I always wanted to move north, and Oregon especially was attractive to me. So as a young adult, soon after I got married, we packed up everything and came north, not knowing what we would find. But it all worked out, and it's my home forever. And I felt like I was reborn being out in the nature that was here compared to Southern California. So I was so grateful, and then ended up patterning my career around the environment. And as part of that, dovetailing with Native Americans and spirituality. You kind of can't help but do that when you're really into like understanding what was here before and how we can protect it. So, so it sounds like we've all had similar experiences with coming to this beautiful place. Thank you. So I want to start our session with a prayer that's something like what they might do when they're starting a discussion like this. We pray to you, Great Spirit, grandmothers, grandfathers, and all our relations. We pray that our words spoken here honor you, honor the land, and honor all the First Nations people, especially the Kalapuya, the Duwamish, the Suquamish, who cared for the land on which the three of us now live. We've come from afar, but we understand the value of the great forests, the pure waters and air, and the abundant life. May our words honor the spiritual nature of your walk and ours, and may we find and live the truth of all our relations. Aho. So I'm going to start with giving a little historical perspective about the land, the Native people, and the settlers that came later. And in doing that, I'm going to be talking mostly about Oregon, but Oregon, Washington, Seattle area, we're all part of the same bioregion. So we share many of the same plants and animals and everything. So it's really all one, which the Native people would like, because to them, everything was one, everything was sacred. So the Native people took care of this land until the European and American traders and settlers came in the 1800s. And these people, when they came, brought diseases that were unknown to the Native people. And so many of them passed away from those diseases. But those that survived were then pushed onto reservation land, unfortunately, that was the land that was not as valuable for farming, for resource extraction. The Euro-Americans were interested, of course, in the forest for timber, the king salmon, the huge salmon that were here then, and beaver pelts. Those are some of the first things that were very, very much taken from the land. But when the Euro-Americans first saw this land, they couldn't help but remark on how beautiful and abundant it was. It was, when you see the accounts of the early settlers, it's amazing what they have to say about this land. So we wonder, why? How did it get that way? Well, the native people took care of it. They burned periodically, they did ceremony and prayer. They took care of whatever was in their tribal area so that it was as abundant as possible. And they did this in part because it was a sacred agreement with the Great Spirit. The Hopi people sent 4 elders to the United Nations in 1992 to share the prophecy that they have that warns of, if we do not take care of Mother Earth, the consequences that can happen for all of us around the world. And they wanted the people, the leaders of the world, to know about this sacred covenant that they had. I'm going to read just a quote. "We made a sacred covenant to follow his life plan, the Great Spirit Creator, at all times, which includes the responsibility of taking care of this land and life for his divine purpose." Very much like what Sai Baba tells us today, right? So, they understood the oneness of creation, of all life, the elements, humans and spirit. They talked about all our relations as brothers and sisters. They talked about the 2-leggeds, humans, the 4-leggeds, the winged ones, and the 1-leggeds, the trees. See, so all of these were in some way related and all contained the same divine spirit. They knew this. So as part of the work that I did on the environment and trying to understand what was here before, trying to understand, as pristine as we see it now, we know that it was much more pristine before. So some of the things that I did was to take the surveyor notes from back in 1851 and translate that into a picture form, like if you could see an aerial photo of that time period. And this map here, this hand-drawn map, happens to be a township, which is 6 miles by 6 miles, so 36 square miles. And it includes land that I currently have, and we have a wildlife preserve on. So I know this landscape well, but this is what it looked like in 1851. Okay, so to interpret this, just take a look at the white rectangles and other shapes that have the lines in them. That was the extent of cultivated land in 1851. So all the yellow areas, these are hills. These are hills out east of Salem, Oregon. And these yellow parts are a prairie. And that prairie was managed by the native people through periodic burning. And those prairies contained 96 plus species of plants alone. So that doesn't include all the mammals, the insects, everything else that was on that land, just plants alone. And then you see the green areas. The green areas are the forests. So you see them along the waterways, primarily up in this hill country. And there are different types of trees in there. It's a great mix, and most of the trees are old growth. And the lines are their trails, the native people's trails that later became the early wagon roads. One thing to point out here is the beaver pond in the middle. It was huge. So this was a well-maintained beaver pond. Obviously the beaver were not yet trapped out, and it was a very, very lush environment. So now if we look at how it is today, which is captured in a 2005 aerial photo, you can just you can see the change there as far as the straight lines, the squares, and the lack of the green forest. So now if we compare the two side by side, then we can see specifically, I'll just point out a couple of things. So we can see what happened after the Native people stopped managing the land and the Euro-Americans began cultivating the land. So one of the major changes is up in the upper left-hand corner. All of that forest there that was around a river where there were no trails even, you had to use a canoe to get through that part, now has been cleared, drained, it's farmland and has a road through the middle of it. And then if you look at the middle, you can see that the beaver pond that is now, it's a narrow canal between fields. Now I know the farmers are doing the best they can, they're growing food and other crops for people. But if we're looking at it from an ecological standpoint, of course we know that there's been quite a few changes. I want to talk about a place that is north of here, just north of this township. And I don't have any visual for that, but I just want to explain briefly. The Native people also had some very sacred places on these lands. And there's a place called Mount Angel, which today is a Benedictine monastery. But when the Native people were here, that was a pilgrimage site. And they would go up to the top of the mount and they had stone seats. And one surveyor, when he went through, saw them sitting on the stone seats and praying, meditating. And he asked them why they were there, doing it there. And they said, the Great Spirit is closer on the mountaintop. And so we have that heritage that shows us how sacred the land was to them and how they practiced that sacredness. So the other thing that we get from this information is as we're looking to restore lands today, we have what's called traditional ecological knowledge that gives us a map of how we might make lands that have maybe degraded that we want to bring back, what we can do. So the Native people have left this legacy both in their philosophy of life and in how they treated the land. So another part on this same landscape, if we went east of where that map was, we get to Silver Falls State Park. Mm-hmm. And that is a place that still has some old growth forests that are absolutely beautiful, that where their divinity shines through, the vibrations are wonderful, and where our Region 6 held our Psi retreats, our annual retreats for many, many years. And we even planted a cedar tree for Swami that's growing very nicely. And one year we had a Native American speaker, George Walking Bear, yes, that came. Krishna Beni, do you remember that?
Yes, that was about 10 years ago, 10, 11 years ago. Region 6 was preparing a play to be presented at a pilgrimage in 2010 to Swami. And the theme was Native American spiritual beliefs. And when we traveled all over the region, we met Brother Reuben at a Grants Pass Center gathering. And he identified himself as Native American and introduced us to George Walking Bear, who was our guest in 2009 at the retreat. George Walking Bear is the spiritual leader and medicine man to many tribes in Northern California. And he is a Psi devotee, and he has attended gatherings at the Grants Pass gathering place. So he agreed to be our advisor. You know, when we started out at the outset, we had no idea how we were going to, what aspect of Native American spirituality we were going to portray in the play. But he advised us and let us know that we should adopt the teachings of the medicine wheel as the theme of our play. And he worked with us, so patient, so generous, helped us to help correcting the script and making suggestions and sharing songs and chants with us to be taught to the children. So the play was prepared And we went to Puttaparthi in 2010, and George, his wife, Ruben, and several other Native Americans joined us on that trip. The name of the play was All Our Relations. And it was wonderful. Swami watched the play. He at the beginning, before the play, Brother Ruben actually sang the Eagle song.
Yaga, yaga, kwe, toyo, toyo, kwenya, toyo, toyo, kwenya, toyo, toyo, kwenya, yaga, yaga.
The children presented the play to Swami after that.
To be a true human being, we must honor and respect all life forms. All beings are our relations, my children. We are one in spirit. We are one in the infinite sun, forever, forever, forever. We are one in the infinite sun, forever, forever, forever. Uwate, leno, leno, maute. Hayano, hayano, hayano. Uwate, leno, leno, maute. Hayano, hayano, hayano. We are one in the infinite sun, forever, forever, forever. Uwate, leno, leno, maute. Hayano, hayano, hayano. Hayano, hayano, hayano. Hayano, hayano, hayano.
The theme was, of course, the medicine wheel, and there he is. He got down from the stage and he walked among the children, talked to them, and took a picture with them. And later, Swami met George personally. They are both in their wheelchairs. Swami accepted the rose and told George he's very happy. It was a wonderful, wonderful trip for all of us. So I wanted to share some of the things we presented to Swami and all the people who gathered there about Native American spirituality. You know, they were being introduced to these concepts for the first time. So the title of the play was All Our Relations, Mitakwe Ase in Lakota language. Obviously, it means we are all related, but in Lakota language, it's actually a prayer of oneness and harmony with all forms of life. People, animals, birds, fish, insects, trees and plants, even rocks, rivers, mountains, and valleys. It is an affirmation of the unity of all things in nature created by the Great Spirit. So when people meet each other and say all our relations, it reinforces that everything has a purpose, is worthy of respect and caring, and has a place in the grand scheme of life. The medicine wheel is actually the cycle of life. It includes everything, all life. Now it is represented by a circle with 4 cardinal points at east, west, north, and south. And the 2 lines that connect east, west, and north, south intersect at the center of the circle. And the center includes everything above and below, all encompassing. And it is infinite wisdom, love, and peace. In other words, it represents the Great Spirit. Now, the two lines divide the circle into 4 quadrants, and each quadrant represents a season: spring, summer, fall, and winter, kind of like the different stages in human life: childhood, youth, householder stage, and the stage of contemplation. It also represents air, water, fire, and earth. Which quadrant represents each of these 4 sacred elements depends on where the tribe lives. And also the colors: white, red, yellow, and black. With some tribes, there could be some alternate colors. Generally, these represent the 4 human races. And the message of the wheel to mankind is unification of the races at the center, based on wisdom, love, and peace. Now, each of these directions have animal spirit guides. These animals could also vary depending on the tribe where they live and what animals live in their area. But generally, East is represented by Sister Eagle. She's soaring high, so she teaches to have higher aspirations. Let the spirit soar. Sharp eyesight, see far and wide, have discernment. And South is represented by the spirit animal, Brother Deer. He is peaceful, innocent, courageous, and always alert. And he moves through life with grace and balance, teaching us also to move through life with grace and balance. The spirit animal for West is Brother Bear. Bears are nearsighted, but they have a strong sense of smell. They hibernate. The bear teaches us the art of self-examination and looking within for answers. The spirit animal for North is the white buffalo spirit, spirit of giving, sacrifice, and thankfulness to the Great Spirit. So these spirit guides help man navigate the path around the medicine wheel, called the medicine path. It is a sacred path, and it's actually a spiritual view of life. Life has a purpose, and it is important to follow the guidance of the Great Spirit with the knowledge that the Great Spirit has put in all people's hearts. A great person once said the medicine wheel has as many teachings as there are grains of sand on the earth. So it has as many teachings as there are people. It's different for everyone, but the animal spirit guides and the Great Spirit, with the knowledge in our heart, guide us on this path. So this was the theme of the play that we presented.
Thank you so much, Krishna Veni. That was beautiful, beautiful teachings, and so resonating with Swami's own teachings. Thank you for sharing that. So now we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, Ananta is going to tell us about some current day initiatives with one of the First Nations in Washington. And we'll also talk about some of the current environmental work that's being done. So we'll be back soon.
Wow, it's been so wonderful to learn about Seattle's nature, the Native American connection, and the play presented to Swami. As much as I would like for the main segment to continue, we will take a short spiritual break. When we return, we will hear about the Seva projects done in the area, environmental initiatives, and more. So, stay tuned.
Oh my gosh, what a beautiful bhajan. But I can't seem to figure out what it is.
Are you tired of not knowing the name of that one song you keep listening to on repeat? Do you want to truly understand and connect with the meaning of your favorite bhajan? Well, look no further. Introducing SSSIO-USA. With an all-inclusive bhajan database integrated right into a seamless user experience, your favorite bhajan is just a tap away. Just click symbol at the center of your screen and start humming. Within 1.08 seconds, SSSIO-USA will not only find the bhajan that you're listening to, but it'll actually translate to your language of preference so that you can feel closer to the divine. Because here at SSSIO-USA, we are on a mission to enable you to tap into that sacred feeling of bliss stored in the meaning of each and every bhajan.
I was never good at singing, though I've tried my entire life. But no matter how bad I sing, SSSIO-USA not only finds the bhajan, as if it can read my mind, but it also suggests like what scale or what pitch suits my voice, and it helps me practice the bhajan. I am not intimidated by singing bhajans anymore. SSSIO-USA, the only Zam we'll ever need.
When we Sai Rama. Wow, what a beautiful bhajan. And I have no clue what it means. There are many such bhajans that I love, but I don't understand. On numerous occasions, I have wondered whether I was singing these bhajans with bhava that Swami cares so much about. What SSSIO-USA delivers that a typical translator doesn't is explaining the message and not just the meaning of words. Thank you, SSSIO-USA. I have never felt more connected with Swami.
As you can see, our patrons are very satisfied with the services that SSSIO-USA brings to the table. A unique experience tailored to your individual needs, enhancing your personal connection to Swami. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to the Banana App Store or Bing Paw Store and download the SSSIO-USA app for free. SSSIO-USA, Shazam for the spiritually inclined.
Disclaimer. Side on. We may change, suspend, or discontinue any aspect of SSSIO-USA at any time, including the availability of any feature, database, and/or content. You agree that SSSIO-USA is responsible for and endorses all users to experience divine bliss as a side effect of this product.
Welcome back, Krishna Bani and Ananta. Ananta, could you now share with us about your work with the Yakama Nation?
Certainly. A few years ago, we were thinking about how do we teach the oneness to children, the unity of all people. And as we were reflecting on it, in India, Swami does this Grama Seva program, which is essentially village outreach, but really serving villages and connecting with villages. So we thought, it'll be nice to get children exposed to that. And some of the initial plans were to take the children to India and actually get them exposed there. But then we said, why can't we do that here? And we started reaching out to various communities outside of the Seattle area. When you go across the mountains, there's a lot of rural areas. And we thought maybe perhaps we could connect with one of those communities. And we tried connecting with various communities. We were not very successful. And sort of when we were getting a little dejected, just then out of the blue, we ended up connecting with this wonderful young woman named Janice from the Yakama Nation. And initially, from the first conversation, she was very enthusiastic, very welcoming. And she is actually responsible for managing homelessness in the Yakama Nation. And so she reports to the chairman and is an official representative of the tribe. So we connected with her, and we thought, okay, let's just go meet. And we drove over across the mountains to meet with her. And she was very welcoming, very sweet from the very beginning. As we were talking, as we were talking, I think maybe on our second visit, she said, and I still think about it. You guys have come all the way from the other side of the mountains, driving all this far distance. What made you come here? And I started telling her about how we were researching and all of this. And pretty much the very beginning, she said, no, stop. Actually, you know what I think happened? I think our God talked to your God and told us, told you to come here. So it's, and that was kind of one of her first lessons to me, which is that, it's all the Great Spirit, our God, that connects us. And And over the course of the next few years that we've been working, but at least, especially that year, I think we made about probably close to 25 to 30 trips within a matter of less than a year. A lot of different beautiful experiences and learnings from them, to respect each other, to respect the nature, to respect the ancestors. I think they definitely conveyed the all our relations part very, very beautifully through their actions and through all of our conversations. And the children definitely got the connection that we were seeking. To this day, 5 years, 6 years later, a lot of the children will remember their interactions with the Yakama Nation, and they always like, can we go back to Yakama, please? So they really established that connection. And working with the community, we definitely got a chance to see a lot of the struggle and poverty that they go through. But also, even in that midst of that poverty, how they rise above all of that and to be exemplary human beings. I remember one day we went there, we were doing a meals program, and we invited a lot of the community to come and partake meals with us. And there was this one gentleman, he was in his 50s. And he was, at the end of the meal, Janice was like, Anant, I want you to come meet Tony here. So I went to meet Tony, and Tony was, he was very happy. He was kind of like, he had tears in his eyes, but he was also, those are happy tears. And, as he he was trying to explain something, but he was very emotional. But once he calmed down a little bit, I got to understand that he was so happy because he said the last time that he was fed with that much love was when he was 17, and that was his mother. And she had passed away shortly afterwards. So he said that just our presence there, he said, I feel like I remembered the day when my mother fed me. We would, every time we would go, we would plan some food or some clothing drive or something or the other to try to contribute in our small ways. It is beautiful. In one of the trips, one of the elders, she's like, I know that you come here to bring the food and the clothing, but what I want you to know that what really attracts us to you is the love that you bring. And that's what makes us want to come back and meet you over and over, and we wait for your visits. So I think it is a beautiful opportunity for everybody to experience, because when, as much as they felt we brought the love, I always felt that it was their love that attracted us there over and over again. In fact, I remember, over time they kind of gave us this name. Unfortunately, can't pronounce it in the local language, but it basically translates loosely to angels of love, and that was the name that they gave us. And I remember one incident very clearly, as if it happened yesterday. During one of the trips, I was at this homeless encampment. It was kind of like in the middle of the trees. It was just like they even called it the jungle. It was just under middle of trees, bunch of tents and makeshift tents that people used to live in. And we had met this one gentleman who he wanted to show us his place that he had proudly created. And it was really what he had done over a year and a half period is actually to essentially, he dug a hole in the ground. He kind of made like a little cave or a little place where he can crawl into to sleep. It protected him from the environment, from the cold and the hot weather. And he put a little shelter on top of it, which was basically a makeshift plastic bags to cover and prevent rain from going inside. On one side, it was kind of very sad to see that the level of poverty, but on the other side, he was very proud with what he had built. So we connected with them. We spoke for a while, and there I was planning some things. And by the time the evening had come, I forgot my laptop there, and I had come back to Seattle. Only the next day I realized, oh my goodness, I left it there. So we called Janice and said, Janice, I think I left my laptop. Can you please go see if you can find it? she went there and she looked around, and after searching for a while, she came back and she said, Ananta, I feel really bad because I couldn't find your laptop. I'm like, it's okay. It was my carelessness. I shouldn't have left it. She's like, no, it's not that. I don't want you to misunderstand our people. Our people are not like this. And I said, it's okay, don't worry. I understand that, for a lot of the people there, I mean, the way that I at least rationalized it in my mind was that for them, it's like they can take the laptop to a pawn shop and get a couple of $100 out of it. It's a lot of money. And that's kind of what I sort of chalked it off in my head. And about 3 days later, I get a call from Janice saying, guess what, Ananta? I'm like, okay, don't tell me you found my laptop. She said, I did. And it's here waiting for you to come and pick it up. And I said, whoa, what happened? She's like, you come here, I'll tell you the story. And then when we went back there a week or a week and a half later, she took me back to that place. She said, you left your laptop here. And apparently that man who had built that he had carved that hole in the ground, he found the laptop. And he said, oh my goodness, this belongs to those angels of love. I want to make sure I take good care of it. So he actually took apart the roof that he created for himself with the plastic bag, wrapped the laptop in the plastic bag, and put that laptop all the way inside the hole. And he slept under the tree for 3 days, waiting for Janice to come. And then Janice said, that these are my people. This is what I wanted you to see. So, at that moment, it was overwhelming. It was, who is richer here? What part of ourselves are we giving here? And what part of them are they giving there? Who's really teaching who? Who is serving who? And who is it that's really teaching? All we're doing is giving them a little bit of food and clothing, and here they are teaching us some of the most profound spiritual lessons of life. And my respect for the tribe, for the culture, just went through the roof. And we have examples on and on and on. Over time, they, when the pandemic hit, the first thing is they're like, Ananta, are all our people okay? They never said all your people okay. They always said are all our people okay? And to this day, something happens in their lives. Janice will call me and said, oh, I just, I'm going to have a grandchild, or this is happening in my family. And she would say the same thing. She's like, what happened? I haven't heard from you in a while. Is everything okay? So it's just these relationships that have, they how beautifully they value them and how they demonstrate it. It's really changed my perspective.
Thank you, Ananta. That's amazing stories, and certainly help to illustrate the whole idea of all our relations in a way that, how would we understand it to the extent that you have by experiencing it? It's not just words, it's something that's heart to heart. So thank you so much for sharing that, and for all the work that you guys are doing with the Yakima people. And I think it kind of wraps us around back to the medicine wheel and the idea that when we integrate different races, cultures, beliefs, and everything, we're increasing the balance and harmony overall. So that's really great. So another thing we can think about is some of the environmental initiatives that happen in the Northwest, Washington and Oregon, that partly stem from the Native people's teachings. In Oregon, we go back to like the 1960s, early 70s, when Governor Tom McCall first had large initiatives, cleaned up the Willamette River, did the first bottle bill in the country, where we then took our cans and bottles back for a deposit, and protected land from urban sprawl. And we still see the benefits of his work today. And then in 2005, Mayor Greg Nichols in Seattle created a US Mayor's Climate Protection Agreement that ended up getting adopted by over 1,000 mayors across the whole country. So they started initiatives to deal with the climate back in 2005. And in that program, a lot of it was based on energy efficiency and conservation, which of course we see in Swami's Ceiling on Desires, right? It's all right there. Conserve, don't waste, and use the money that you save to help others. And today we have Governor Jay Inslee and his climate initiatives, as well as Oregon and California. So, you know, all these things keep happening here where we've begun to learn and are doing more. And then in the Psi community, Region 6, which is where we are, there's a program called Seeds of Love that is centered around growing plants, planting trees, you know, planting seeds yourself in your home that you can nurture and grow. And while you're nurturing, to think of Swami and think of nature and connect in a more sacred way. And then to have an offering of these plants that have been nurtured to Swami for his 96th birthday. So I think it's a beautiful example of a project that the Psi, especially young adults and others, are doing to help us connect with the natural world and with the spiritual aspects in the natural world. So we're coming close to the end. Krishna Beni and Ananta, do you have anything to add?
So I just wanted to say, you know, I'm really thankful to Swami for giving me this opportunity, you know, to look back and reminisce that 1.5 years almost that we spent with the children, preparing them. And it was a intensive learning time for the adults as well. We learned about the medicine wheel. We saw all the commonalities that we have with these native people. So basically, they follow Swami's Educare program. That's what they're doing. And we had a wonderful time at the ashram with Swami and our Native American brothers and sisters that came with us. And we are very grateful to George Walking Bear for everything he did to help us learn all these things. Thanks to him and thanks to Swami. Sai Ram.
Yes, Sai Ram. Thank you. Ananta?
Yeah, you know, that's actually a wonderful reminder. Thank you. As we were working with the Yakama Nation more, after some point, they wanted to incorporate we invited them over to the center, and they actually participated in the center, watched the SSC classes, sat through the classes, and they were very, and even we had a mealtime prayer where they said their mealtime prayer, and then they wanted us to say ours so they could understand it. Just a lot of interest and desire to know and the culture and find the similarities. And when they saw the SSC program, they wanted to know, wow, this is really nice. And we ended up talking quite a bit about the program, and they wanted to incorporate that into their own community because they believe that as people are coming out of homelessness or whatever struggles that they're coming out of, it's important that you not only feed their body, but you feed their soul and nourish the soul. And so they said this program looks like something that it nourishes the soul. So we invited them to SSEHV training, and they came and joined the SSEHV training for 3 days. And they figured out how to incorporate that into their own weekly meetings in their own way. They realized, wow, this character education is beautiful, and it actually brings out and it feeds the soul, as they would call it. So they incorporated that, and they were so grateful for that. They turned around and said, you know, you've done so much for us. We haven't done anything for you. So they hosted like a weekend get together for us. And they invited all of us over to one of their fields, and we all had a blast camping outside, and they joined us, and they actually did programs for us, cultural programs and all of that. So it's just amazing kindness and just love that melts you, and really felt part of the family. So thank you for this opportunity to reminisce and remember all those beautiful moments.
That's wonderful. So many good stories. And it's amazing how Swami seems to be behind us connecting with the indigenous people of this land. And I'm sure in part because that, in a sense, is the indigenous spiritual beliefs of this land. And this is where we are now. So understanding it, imbibing it, working with those that hold those traditions, we can only gain from that. So thank you so much. And I want to thank the people behind the scenes that have helped us come together today. And of course, the one that's within us all. So until we meet again, all our relations. Oh,
Our relations.
What an inspiring session. We are truly grateful to our wonderful panelists for sharing their memories and reflections in such a beautiful manner. It is now time for this week's Connect Challenge. Over to Sister Chitra Kumar, the USA National EnviroCare Coordinator, for a special message on sustainability and this week's Connect Challenge.
Thank you, Vishnu. One of the ways for us to honor the struggles of Indigenous people is to acknowledge whose lands we've borrowed wherever we are. For example, I'm talking to you right now from Arlington, Virginia, where I live. This is the land of the Piscataway tribe. Our tribal elders often thank 7 generations past and consider 7 generations in the future whenever they make critical decisions. We can learn a lot from that kind of thinking. For example, how would we behave differently if we had to answer to our forebears 7 generations in the future? You see, Swami did this throughout his life by giving back tenfold to Puttaparthi. Swami also gave us the 5 human values and the practice of sealing on desires to help us stem our own desires to consume more than we truly need. At the National Service Retreat held in October, we led a fantastic workshop on sustainability as service. Devotees from across the country shared so many ideas that could be done in their community to live more in balance with nature. From finding alternatives to disposable cutlery and plates at the Sai events and service projects, to litter cleanups. Also organizing community solar co-ops and petitions to ban styrofoam. The ideas were endless, and so was the commitment inspiring. No matter what was mentioned though, we all agreed that there's always ways we could do more. So we ended with a sadhana challenge, and we'd like to offer it to you here as well. Ready? What's the one thing that you can do individually or as a group to live more sustainably? Share your best ideas and practices to implement the 4 R's: reconnect, reduce, reuse, and recycle. Submit a photo or an under 10-second video clip highlighting your best practices. If you need any ideas at all, check out the Go Green checklists at satyasai.org/ESC/teaching tips. And thank you.
We encourage you all to participate in the challenge. We all do something daily that is Go Green. For example, I carry my own reusable water bottle. It takes 450 years for one plastic water bottle to break down, so even small changes can make a big impact on Mother Earth. It is now time for this week's public service announcement.
By the way, Prashant, the pasta you delivered last week, we got really good feedback from the shelter. You should share the recipe with us.
Oh, that's nice to hear, Suresh. Sure, thank you.
Hey, Sairam Satya, how was your school today?
Sayam, Uncle. It was just normal day.
Hey, you sound a bit tired. Is everything okay at school?
I got teamed up with Rob in an activity and we could not finish on time, but all the others did.
Hey, is it the same Rob you mentioning other day?
Yeah, the most inactive kid in our class.
Hey, what happened, Satya?
This isn't the first time, Uncle. He always sits alone at recess, never plays with any of us, and you know what? He always eats potato chips for lunch. Who eats potato chips for lunch anyway?
Hey Satya, you should not criticize anyone like that. You should do better job next time.
Okay, Dad.
These kids, these days.
I know, but something doesn't sound right with Rob.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. There was a Halloween event at school and Rob's mother supposed to be the volunteer, but she never turned up.
I cannot stop thinking about the kid from Satya's class. I wonder if Prashant heard more. Sairam, Prashant?
Sairam, Suresh?
You know, I have been thinking about Rob, that kid from Satya's class. I hope he's doing okay.
Oh yeah, the other day Satya mentioned that she saw Rob having potato chips for lunch and she shared her lunch. During their conversation, Rob mentioned that his mother does multiple jobs and they barely manage to have regular food at home.
So sad. Interestingly, I was reading an article about child hunger, and apparently this is a very big problem all across the US. You know, these kids rely on the school lunch program and they may not have nutritious food during evenings or weekends.
Even in the US? That is quite alarming. Can we do something about it?
Yeah, let's explore more and then we can reach out to a center service coordinator.
You know what? Child hunger does ring a bell. I saw a message asking for YA volunteers to join a service task force who are trying to address these problems along with homelessness.
Perfect. We should really reach out to them right away. You know, it's amazing to see how Swami works. Had I not been there at your home yesterday, I would have never known about this opportunity. Thank you, Swami.
Did you know that more than 1 in 7 children in the US live in food insecure homes? These are households that do not have enough food for every family member to lead a healthy life. That is about 11 million children. COVID pandemic has worsened the situation. Explore opportunities in your local communities and work with your service coordinators to help reduce child hunger. We also invite you to check out the National YA Service Task Force. Remember, together we can make a difference. Jai Sai Ram.
Child hunger is a real issue prevalent all across the US. Did you know that Native Americans suffer from 15% higher rate of food insecurity than all Americans due to systemic and institutional inequities? Studies show that children from food insecure families are 90% more likely to be in poor health compared to food secure children. Therefore, we request you all to explore and help out as much as you can. Now, let's head to Seattle, where field reporters Manasvi and Deepti will take us on a journey through the rainy but beautiful city and its spiritual progression. Over to you, Manasvi and Deepti.
Thank you, Vishnu. Seattle is a city full of history and culture, and its mountains, lakes, and trails open our eyes to its beauty and connection with nature. Nature is a manifestation of the divine, and divine has indeed been gracious upon Washington, for it houses a splendid variety of flora and fauna. And it's no wonder Washington is called the Evergreen State, with 120 state parks, 3 national parks, 6 national forests, 18 national wildlife reserves, 5 active volcanoes, and a national marine reserve. Olympic National Park boasts the nation's longest wilderness coastline, and one of only a few temperate rainforests in the country. Mount Rainier, one of the tallest peaks in the US and an active stratovolcano, was revered by the early Native Americans as Tahoma, the mountain that was God. Washington flaunts a range of accessible trails to world-class mountaineering adventures, scenic drives, hiking, camping, and a plethora of relaxation spots. Your mind will certainly be in silence being with nature, and as Swami says, only in the depth of silence you can hear the voice of God.
The Seattle spirit is full of optimism, enterprise, and innovation. The Space Needle, a much treasured icon, continues to symbolize the forward-thinking spirit as well as the innovative spirit of Seattle. Seattle is home to major companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Starbucks, Eddie Bauer, Boeing. They have set aggressive goals to reduce their footprint and become carbon neutral by the end of the decade. From Amazon's pledge to use fully electric delivery vehicles, to Eddie Bauer's use of fabrics made with recycled materials, to Boeing's sustainable aerospace goals, and Microsoft's target to be carbon negative by 2030, Seattle has surely paved the path to a sustainable future. Did you know that Seattle houses the world's first net zero arena? Seattle's Climate Pledge Arena features zero fossil fuel consumption for daily use, 100% renewable energy, and zero single-use plastic. Washington is the first state in the U.S. to pass legislation to sell only electric vehicles from the year 2030. Now that shows a strong commitment towards sustainability.
While you're visiting Seattle, you may come across totem poles, which are tall wooden structures made of red cedar wood. These monuments, created by First Nations of the Pacific Northwest, represent and commemorate ancestry, people, or events. Most totem poles display beings or crest animals marking a family's lineage and validating the powerful rights and privileges that the family held. The totem poles represent Indigenous spirituality, but more importantly, spirituality is not abstract. It is a way of living for a constant reminder. The constant connection with nature, being in the Northwest, makes it easy to see divinity all around us. Powwow is another celebration of American Indian culture in which people from diverse Indigenous nations gather for the purpose of dancing, singing, and honoring the traditions of their ancestors. Seattle has its own Seafair Indian Days powwow held in July. Seattle has many symbols and places that provide various forms of worship.
Seattle demonstrates spirituality as a part of everyday life through the Native American culture, living and sharing resources among all species and maintaining harmony and peace. As we heard earlier, Seattle is named after its Suquamish and Duwamish tribe leader, Chief Seal. His influence is still apparent to this day. In 1908, a statue of Chief Seal was erected in Tilcomb Place. It's one of the most popular sites in town. But what did he do that deserved such respect? Seal established a reputation as a friend of the settlers from the Vancouver expedition. Although the settlers were completely different, Seal was determined to maintain relations and prevent conflict. Seal was a peacemaker, and he connected everyone. Even now, all these years later, the reverence remains. I'll leave you with a quote from Chief Seal that resonates with Swami's love all, serve all, help ever, hurt never. The earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth. All things are connected like the blood that unites us. We did not weave the web of life. We are merely a strand in it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. Back to you, Vishnu.
Thank you, Deepthi and Manasvi. This has been a wonderful journey for the spiritual traveler to experience the varieties that Seattle has to offer. Thanks to all our viewers for joining us on this week's episode of InSaider Lens. We hope all of you enjoyed taking this trip through Seattle, Washington with us. Like many other states, back in the day, the territorial seal originally bore the motto. Washington's seal depicts an anchor of one side and the goddess of hope in the center, pointing at the word Auka, meaning by and by, which can be interpreted as hope for the future. The deeper import of the state seal is uncovered as we once again examine Native American outlook to environmentalism and spirituality. In recent years, this outlook has been brought to light through Chief Sun Bear of the Bear Tribe, a famous Chippewa Indian. He says, the elders have predicted the people who will soon be a source of hope for the future, as the goddess of hope points to, will be those who are anchored in love, those who love life and affirm life in every way they can. They will be people who are willing to make a conscious change, a change in the way they view life and in their actions toward all creations by seeking out another level of consciousness and communicating with the Creator and the Earth. Friends, these words inspire us to be that hope by imbibing the ways of the Native Americans to live up to our duty of existing in harmony with Mother Earth and all of creation, by anchoring ourselves in the nectarine and healing potion of love, as Swami has always asked us to. Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba says, nature is more progressive than man, and to protect nature, man has to make use of it within limits. When man tampers with nature recklessly, it reacts adversely and trouble arises. In order to protect nature, man has to place a ceiling on desires. So, let us all pledge as follows. I promise to revere the earth I walk upon, love Mother Earth, and keep her clean by adorning her at all times, constantly reminding myself to love all and serve all at all times, thereby making an effort to experience the oneness by seeing the world as one happy family. As Swami says, the present is a product of the past, but it is also the seed for the future. Let us be conscious of the seeds that we plant for our future. May our Mother Sai shower her choicest blessings on all of us in this pursuit. On that note, please remember to join our SSC Family Game Night on episode 5 on November 19th at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, and 6 p.m. Pacific. We will see you next time on InSaider Lens. This is Vishnu Rangachari on Soul Network signing off. Until next week, stay safe, healthy, and well. Sai Ram.